Hi, everybody. Let's see. Alex, if you could give me a thumbs up that you hear me. And Erin, if you could let me know that you've shared to your page.
Yeah, I think I've shared to my page.
Okay, so Alex says we're on. Thank you so much for your tech support, Alex. And welcome everybody to our Facebook Live, the Still Kicking episode with Erin Ogden. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. Great to be connecting with you, Kay, again, and everyone else who's watching. Yeah.
It's really exciting. I want to thank everybody who's joining us and let everybody know that we are here to talk about the inner and outer ecosystems, which is a way of characterizing our reality that I hadn't ever really considered before. So I had the opportunity to look through, to watch our original podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that you said was that you translate energy into the English language. And so please translate what is this energy and what is the translation?
Yeah, gosh. And I'm certainly not the first one to translate things like this. Like, I think about the Yoga Sutras, and both of us have, studied yoga, and not that you need to be a yoga enthusiast, but even the ancient sutras, which are, thousands of years old texts, they talk about the inner water channels. And if you look at like old school Europe, like you had power if you controlled the water channels. Like the king was more powerful if he controlled the water channels. And then now I'm involved in the modern permaculture movement, which is more from the 70s, and it has its own languaging, but talks about the nuances and the articulation of, even through science of the ecology. And now it's like big right now, it's like really up, and so many of our of our collective are interested in these ecological movements out of necessity. And I love tuning in through meditation and different what you call indigenous or shamanic practices, and just loving the elements and loving my own experience with permaculture and working in my gardens. You can see that reflected within you. And not to go too, like, there can be so many nuances of going into the inner ecosystem and all the different like translations of that, but the inner is the outer and the outer is the inner. And it reminds me of what I might say in the astrology. Again, whether you believe in astrology or not, Pluto and Jupiter have been linking up 3 times this year, and tomorrow is the last time of this kind of pendulum swing from Earth's point of view. And Pluto in the energy of Capricorn, which is the Western chart, is regenerating the entire mountain of being. So if you think of the ecosystem of a mountain, and it has like everything you need. It has 4 sides to it, different light shadows. It has like forests, it has smaller plants, it has like deserty areas, it has water channels, it has an inner lava volcano, and all of that with Pluto and Capricorn since 2008, but specifically in 2020, it's been completely regenerating the whole thing through episodes. So there's a volcanic eruption, which changes one landscape. There's a tornado, there's a flood. And it's not just earth changes, it's the Capricorn energy of business, the umbrella systems of even family or society, or any kind of major overarching umbrella system in your life. And it's slowly mulching the whole thing. And so just like a volcanic eruption can change one side of the mountain or one aspect of your life, and then a flood does something here, or a big downpour of rain, or like COVID, happened this year. And so the astrology is so earthy and so heavy hitting, and it's demanding that we pay attention in a physical way to the, what I'd say is obvious changes happening. And so suddenly, like astrology and metaphysics and spirituality and our concepts, our beliefs, which is Jupiter linking up with Pluto, changing the landscape,
Mhm.
not just of the mountain of being physically in our bodies, how we're feeling, our health, or the fear, the compromised possibility, the fear that comes up with what might happen or what has happened or how many have passed on or complications or financial. And I mean, we're just getting started, especially in the US with some of these changes. And it can be in a really good way. You know, this can be like when the mountain of being is changing, it could just be season by season. There's obvious changes, but we can work with it. So we're learning to mulch all of this, like you and I were like, oh, let's breathe together for a moment before we get on. You know, it's like, what else are we going to do? Like, or, you know, is that helpful? And we're coming into that. And then with Jupiter and our beliefs, our ideas, our mental, even our prejudices or our philosophy of life, it's like it's mulching too. And especially in the spiritual community, whatever that even means at this point. But you know, I referenced, we connected briefly before, and it was like, well, you know, a lot of people we know, or maybe some people that are tuning in might have a little more of a spiritual practice that's more etheric or unseen. And again, that Capricorn, Pluto regenerating that heavy hitting earth energy is like COVID. It's like you have to pay attention. What is it like to pause, really? What is it like to suddenly not have a job? What is it like to have a financial crisis? What is it like to have a political rendezvous with whatever this next level is? You know, I don't know enough about politics to actually speak very well about that, but it's also obvious. And it doesn't mean there's not a spiritual reality and an unseen truth, and that metaphysics and different laws are unique to the different layers of consciousness, but we're being asked to be really real in a third dimensional, you know, earth based way about the seen reality, and learn to grace, like employ grace and decompose this and regenerate it as best we can.
Yeah.
And you know, the grace of it is the third hit up of Jupiter expanding or giving way to what we do believe in, or showing a little more spaciousness or generosity. But then with Pluto regenerating this mountain of being, like what has changed or what still needs like a new structure, and maybe there's decades ahead of some of this. And again, this is happening within us, in our psyche, in our bodies, you know, and whatever languaging, whatever is true for you, and it's happening with outside of us. But we're being asked to really, we're not just being asked to, we're being, it's like pulling us to the outer reality. It's pulling us to our environment. And that's really good. We need to pay attention to it. But it's like the opportunity is it, there is an inner reality, there is an inner landscape that's also changing. And Jupiter is the truth, and Pluto is like what needs to release or let go of, or what needs to be regenerated so that you can renew the truth within you. And when I say the truth, it's like a silent space within you. So it's like, how can you as a spiritual being or use a spiritual practice, whatever that even mean, what does that even mean to you, to help you wake up each morning and really show up
Yeah.
and really know that the truth of the moment, this might be a whole nother conversation, but that's lying within you. And so I guess that's not totally speaking to the inner and outer landscapes exactly, or ecosystems, but it's to know that something within you is reflecting what's happening outside of you. And there's an opportunity that if you go within, if you close your eyes to see, whatever that means, but if you can close your eyes to see, you might be able to just take a moment of respite that helps you anchor in in a very real way, so that when you open your eyes back up, you can tend to what's in front of you in a very personal way, with your home, your family, your community. And then as you go out into the larger world, you can kind of pause more articulately when you're like, whoa, it's way out of bounds. I need to go back. Because I think a lot of us are so collectively minded right now.
Yeah.
We're paying attention to the mountain of being that's the whole earth. And it's like out of our hands. It's like, come back to your own hands. What can your hands do?
Ooh, yeah. Oh, I love that. I want to
Yeah.
just take a minute to welcome everybody that's joining us on the live. We have Callie and Sherry and B and Lee and Hope. Oh my gosh, that sounds like a song. Oh my God, that's beautiful. Thank you,
The
everybody.
Wisdom Council.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you have questions for Aaron throughout the live, please type them in the chat and Alexandria will help us figure out how to ask those questions. And thanks again for being here. So I want to ask you what we were talking about before we came on. I was telling you that I was feeling increasingly human, and that feels, it feels brand new to me. And I think what it is that I feel more conscious and healed in the human experience. And I've never experienced that before. I've never been this conscious and this healed in the human body and in the experience. But I want to talk about this notion of being in the body, because the energies are so intense that it's easy to be taken out of the body. And how do we know if we're in our bodies? And if we're not, how do we get in them? Super basic.
Oh, this is. Mm. I feel like I'm a farmer out in the fields with like a huge field to plow, and the field is my beliefs and my mental thoughts and just this mental arena, especially with social media and everything in an amazing way, sharing information, yet not necessarily promoting body consciousness, somatic awareness, like a groundedness, a material, like I'm here. And God, this is so, I mean, I just took a breath in. It's like just to pause. And I can only speak from my personal experience. And, I'm fortunate if it matches up with my teachers and, my teachers who have decades of experience, and then maybe texts that speak similarly. But like what I've been noticing is where, and God bless us all, or not God bless us all, but just earth bless us all, body bless us all. But like to be, and in my, 25, 30 years experience of somatic psychotherapy, somatic awareness, yoga, exercise, like, pilgrimage, just like racquetball, just like, it doesn't require any thinking or belief to become centered in your body. Yet the belief structures are being, that's Jupiter, Pluto, the beliefs are being plowed through and regenerated. And for a lot of us are being asked to include other people's views or other viewpoints other than our own, or regenerate our own and see what comes out in the end. And again, we're at that last pendulum swing astrologically of this year. And it's been a big year. And so like how the question would be for your own sense of self, your own body, your own, all these, this multifaceted psyche, like, are you able to just like pause and take some breaths in? Like you and I did just a moment ago. And we had to like announce it to ourselves. And we have, decades of practice in this, and still is like, wait, let's take some breaths in. Oh yeah. And it doesn't require any identity. It doesn't require any concept. It doesn't require right or wrong. It doesn't require a stance. Or if anything, it requires a stance of like neutrality, of saying, I'm willing to like just be here and actually maybe appreciate that, to honor that, or to just be open to that. And it requires surrender. like what is surrender? And I can feel for myself, even though this is what I teach and I love it, I appreciate it, every single day, I I'm noticing I have to actively like talk to myself and be like, honey, like you can just like close your eyes for a moment. Maybe you need to like this thing, like it's so amazing and my life is so successful and flourishes because of this thing, and I need to set it down. And sometimes it's like a weird talk about suddenly being human in a new way. Like, what is it to be human, to set the phone down and take some breaths in?
Yeah.
Or I'm so fortunate because I have a beautiful nature around me. But the natural flow of the breath, you can be a total city person, you can still tap into nature or look at a tree or I always advise someone to have at least one plant that they pay attention to each day,
Yeah.
but again, the breath, the body is natural. But to kind of extract ourselves from that pull of, it's like it's very earthy, the energy right now, and very real in that earthy way, yet it's very etheric, it's through the interwebs, it's very mental.
Mm.
So it's like the pull is like getting us up in the airwaves of the mind, but it's having very physical changes. But I wonder how much of us are able to really breathe through that or take that time. And I'm into microdosing like every day because not all of us have time for an hour and a half physical exercise sequence every day,
Yeah.
let alone once a week or ever. And it's the intention, the quality of intention that totally helps you derive the benefit, the increasing benefit. And that's the positive to this astrology. Yet I wonder how many of us are really capitalizing off of that. And you might not seemingly make a lot of money when you close your eyes and just breathe. But I wonder if that's going to help us regenerate something that allows us to connect to others around us despite our beliefs, despite how we feel, even.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when I'm able to connect with people, I mean, sometimes it's excruciating for my heart, but at the same time, I'm like, but I'm connected, I'm alive. And that feels to me like what you say when you're like, I'm alive as a human, like in a way maybe I've never been before. And maybe I have nothing to show for it, or I don't need to show anything for it, but I know. And that's going to help us regenerate an entire country. That's going to help us regenerate, just let alone your bedroom or your morning routine or your relationship with your family or who you live with, your community, your job, and whatever's changing, evolving, or continuing to grow. I mean, I can't express how, what an opportunity this year is. And possibly we're just coming today, tomorrow, like there's a major planetary reset on the winter solstice, December 22nd, bringing us into 2021. Like, I was personally in Costa Rica for like 9 months this year and I didn't really do anything. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, even though that's what I do for a living, is practice stillness and meditation and this philosophy that less is more. Yet this year, again, so much has happened. Some people have changed jobs or had a lot of benefit or a lot of outward success. But if you have just been kind of biding time and learning to just kind of get through this year, that actually was the general energy. It's like when you take the whole garden and you turn it over and winterize it, like the whole garden to be extreme. So
Yeah.
consider the inner landscape of that. Like if the whole body's like, I don't even know. But to your point, like I'm so alive, or there's a space ready.
Yeah.
Like it's so incredible. I just got like a really hilarious, like it's a landing spot for like an ET spaceship. I'm thinking of our time in Shasta last year, like just like entertaining, whether someone believes it or not, just like we totally cleared a space and the spaceship of the new intel, the new opportunity, like the total life transformation, or just the next piece that you need, that when you look back, you're like, that was the turning point. Like, that's now.
Yeah. Just that practice, I made a practice of just going for a walk without my phone. And that has like, I feel like it's saved my life because it's just, it just creates a neutral space that it's just neutral. It's just like a reset. You know, I can't,
Yeah.
it seems like such a simple thing, but it's been so profound for me. I know.
And the
One,
smallest thing, the smallest
yeah,
thing of taking a walk, even if it's a 10-minute walk, and you could still be in your head about it,
yes,
possibly, but it gives more opportunity to be more aligned in a being sense.
yeah.
And
And
it could be a small microdosage like that.
I
Yeah.
kind of feel like that has been one of the silver linings of COVID is that because our lives have kind of compressed to the essential, that we have more opportunity to get into the body and to be aware of like the simple, you know, gestures and energetic flows and thoughts and stuff that we're actually
Yes.
going through. Like we're in, it's almost like a super duper slow motion boot camp.
It it is, with like a lot of, Mercury's been opposing Uranus, and it'll be hitting up its third pendulum swing, just like the Jupiter Pluto pendulum swing, since the last week of September. Mercury opposite Uranus, and it's going to hit up its last swing of Epiphany, opportunity for sudden insight, coming into this next week or so. And it's the revelation of body consciousness, of somatic awareness, of whatever this life form thing is incredible. And if you bring your sixth sense, or your mental awareness, your witnessing capacity to this vehicle, it's like an Egyptian pyramid. It's like it is. I know so many people, and sometimes I kind of like troll the internet, not in a negative sense, but like a troll. You're just kind of looking around and not always interacting, but I aim to do it with a good intention to see what people are saying. And so many people are talking about how they just never, like, I never knew what it was like to be human, as you just said, or like, in this new way, all these revelations, and it's happening. We're just getting started with all of this. Even people like ourselves who maybe have practiced consciously these arts, or this kind of looking inward and having space to think about new things or have epiphanies, so much. And it could dramatically move one into inspired action in a way that either can be really awesome, like great with what you've already been doing. You're like, yeah, these are my values and ethics. I'm going to stay with it. Or it could help you to move in a direction you never thought you could or would. And, and overcome challenges that you never thought you would be able to overcome. And because everything's being changed up on the chessboard just enough so, in a real way, a material way, the opportunities are there. And we're coming together, we're listening to each other, whether we like it or not. A lot of what we hear we don't like, but we're hearing, we're
Yeah.
listening. And now is the time to start to attune and to start to discern. And there'll be other times in the astrology that help us. I love astrology because it helps us see the seasons, even month to month, when we can tune in and discern. And gosh, January, the new beginning, new reset, January 12th is another really good one, thinking about last January. And then as we come into March, when COVID really started to expand through our world, we're going to go through the cycle again next year, and we're going to have new opportunities in ways that are so much more exfoliated.
Mm, yeah. You know, when we were talking last time, you mentioned that there was a time in your life where you didn't see anything for yourself. And this kind of created a despondency in you, and you kind of felt like you didn't want to be here. And it wasn't until you learned to go inward to tap into the wellspring, you called it, that you began to understand that it might be possible for you to stay. And I wonder if that is actually where a lot of people are at, because they can't see where we're headed. I mean, none of us could anyway, but we had the illusion that we thought we knew what was going to happen. Like life has been fairly predictable, all these years. But now it doesn't really feel like that
It
anymore.
seemed to be predictable, right? Yeah, it seemed to like match up.
Yeah, but now it's kind of lost that predictability. And I wonder if people are feeling that kind of despondency. But so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about this point that we're at where we don't know. We just don't know. And how do we get comfortable with that?
Yeah. Okay, this is so beautiful. And to see the beauty in this is an extraordinary thing. Um, and it's not lost upon us as humans, but it is not the easiest thing. And maybe it's the greatest challenge we're up against. And I wrote about it recently on Facebook, and it said it's okay to not know. And I just connected with my teacher this morning, and it was coming up for me just again. And of course, you're asking, and we're coming back to this conversation of like, it was the question of like, okay, Aaron, or okay, Kay, or okay, self, like me in this world, like, am I willing to be here? And maybe more so in our collective, there might be even millions of people at any given day that's actually the question they're asking.
Yeah.
And where maybe I had felt so lost in that, some 20 years ago in this life path, where it seemed like everyone was just like, yeah, I'm just in college and I'll go to the keg party and then I'll like study my classes and I'll become a lawyer, and they did it. Or I'll just like have a, and not to undermine or diminish or belittle or any of that. It's incredible. Yet there's something else going on, and now it's obvious. And everyone asks these questions, and everyone's going to die. We know this, and it's different for everyone. Some people, it's funny, they're comical about it. Some people garden. Some people raise their children and bring new life. Some people are like me that are more metaphysical and philosophers, and some people it's painful, like, but it's like that was my experience again in Costa Rica. And I thought, gosh, like 20 something years later, after all this teaching, and here I am up against the same question. And it's like, well, yes, honey, you are. You're here, you're breathing. But some days, some moments, all it is a breath. Other moments, it's like a whole new job, a whole new inspiration. Other days, it's just kind of like, yeah, I'm just getting along. And I think with COVID, we had sometimes collectively millions and millions of people experiencing day to day, week to week, even month to month, like I'm on retreat and I don't know if I like it. Or I don't know. And in my experience and what my teachers show me too is it's always the same. I don't know. Like it's not like there's the answer. You just start to get really good at like a good farmer knows, I mulch the fields, and I keep listening and looking at the weather patterns and tuning into the cycles to when I need to mulch, but I'm going to need to keep mulching. Things are going to die, but then new things sprout up. Like when the leaves fall off the tree and fall, if you were like screaming in agony at the tree of don't die, people would look at you weird, being like, honey, like it's called winter. So it's like we are in the winter of our lives. The United States is in the winter. Like the new president, we're still in winter. It's not exactly the next president that's going to make the biggest difference. There's an overarching winterizing effect happening. It doesn't mean you can't have spring every day. So it's a little complicated or confusing to talk about, but we're in an overarching winter in our lives. But every day, if you can microdose the breath, if you can microdose the seasons, you can bring new life to each inhale. You can bring new life to each day. You can bring new life to 2021. But it's to also understand there's an overarching winter. That's where like Jupiter, who's a benefic, who's like the good fortune, was in his downfall this whole year, meeting up with Pluto. And again, right now is the last pendulum swing where Jupiter's like, the good news is it's time to let go. The good news is like, we're not done yet mulching the garden. The good news is like, even if you like the new president, like that's not the total answer. And I mean, again, I want to express I'm limited on politics, but I want to bring it up because it's nothing's for certain. Even the astrology of inauguration day is like a shit show, meaning it'll cast us into the unknown. Whatever it is that happens will show us that there is it'll exfoliate some understanding, likely on a mass scale, that we don't quite know. And so if we can keep humbling ourselves, go back into the body, just tune into the breath, or whatever it is you do. I don't want to be like it doesn't have to be like spiritual or anything, just whatever you do to like relax or let go or enjoy yourself, or not whatever, because some people enjoy themselves in sadistic ways and it's not so cool. But for the majority of us, like a way that you can tune in to something that doesn't require you to know anything, play a game.
Yeah.
But even like sports are shut down a lot. And I understand like even the things we naturally go to are blocked. So the challenge is all around us, but it's helping us open up to a gateway into a new way of seeing things. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of, I feel like I'm at the edge where I don't really know how to speak to it.
Yeah. I know for me, every day I'm finding the call just to go back to basics, whether it's just you know,
Yeah.
taking a shower, taking a second shower for the day, or just, you know, just making some tea, or just super basic. I'm constantly being called back to the basics. I was wondering if you could speak to how how do we help people shift or understand that there are different ways of looking at what is happening in the outer reality, the outer ecosphere, and its potential effect on you. Like people are so hooked into a certain outcome that if we
Yeah.
have this
Yeah.
president, then everything's going to go,
Yeah.
it's going to go like this. And if we
It's
have
like I'm thinking of the tree that I just said, like people are seeing a tree dropping its leaves, like a change, and they're believing it on its surface view. Like again, if you, I mean, no one, most people learn about seasons at such a young age, this wouldn't happen. But like, if you didn't know anything about anything and you see a tree dropping its leaves, you might think it's dying. And it's like, no, it's regenerating. It might be stronger, but it's drawing its energy into its core, into an unseen truth, into the roots in the soil. So it's the soil underneath that's unseen, that is what we need to pay attention to.
yeah.
And then we know the tree will grow its leaves back, most likely. Every once in a while, a tree really dies. And that's, I think, the scary thing is there are some trees that are dying. But what is that? And it's much more complicated than I'm saying. But if we bring ourselves back in somatically into being, where basically whatever it is you do with that, you don't need to believe anything or think anything. And this is saying a lot. I mean, this is a maturity that I don't find that very many of us have. or even interested in. A lot of us, even if we're spiritual, we have religious ideas, which are beautiful, but they don't always help facilitate this inner truth. Like it's the priest that told us, or like in God we trust, but maybe we don't really know exactly what that is, or we need to dive a little deeper for a lot of us, even if we do have a great practice. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a religious practice or spiritual or just, or you're an atheist, whatever, but there's something about the material phenomenal reality is really pulling us, like the tree's dropping its leaves and everyone's pointing and saying the tree's dying, and then they're pointing toward, like, I don't know, the guy next to it with a blower, like blowing the leaves off or something, and it's like he's not doing it, or we're mistaking it, but I don't know exactly who it is or what it is that's going on. And saying it's God or the universe isn't quite enough right now, unless you're someone who is like, if it's enough, it means that you're like, when I pay attention to nature, I'm okay. And I notice that I'm okay. I can notice my mind and I can look on Facebook or the news, or I can see all the not okayness, but I can also hold a space where I'm like, well, the wind is blowing, or the sun is setting, or like the leaves are falling, or there are some new seeds sprouting. And it seems like there's two things going on, or different things that have totally different realities happening. And I just know that when I look out of it, even if I'm super smart, and I have colleagues and friends who are so smart, I know some of the most intelligent people, and they can follow the rabbit holes and they can do all that. But at the end of the day, when we sit together, we don't know in the same way. Even astrologers, who are sometimes very gifted at predicting out of thousands of years of evolutionary cycles we witness, like science, like watched, we don't know what's going to turn out tomorrow or at the end of 2020 or on inauguration day. I don't know, but I do know the sign and symbol says, opportunity to feel deeply and opportunity to feel like you don't know.
Yeah.
And that might be an oversimplistic way to say it, but
Yeah.
like, how comfortable are we, or how willing are we to increase our capacity to not know, or to not need to know so instantly,
Yeah.
and to maybe conjure some values. Like, I value personally, and this could be my own issues too, or my own thing, but like, I want to be this diplomat, but like, I like to I value I like to speak nicely to others, or I like to be considerate of others, or be kind to others. And I know kindness is not, sometimes you need to experience, what's the opposite of kindness? Unkindness.
Yeah.
Sometimes that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But generally, like, I value that, or I value listening. I value, like, when I can let go of being right, or I can, and I mean, I do well speaking, like here I am blabbing, but I love to speak and just share. But like, when it's time for someone else to share, or me to just witness and listen, like, I value that. And I think there's a lot of room for a lot of us to kind of remember our values and activate those again, and it might be a little bit like less is more, like pausing in between our response or our reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had, that's funny that you say that, because when I drive between Michigan and Illinois, I have to travel on a road that is extremely busy, and on this highway, and it's always it has, I've been traveling this road since I was a little kid, and making this trip back and forth. And one of my triggers is like reckless drivers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for the last year or so, I haven't really been triggered by the driving. And my experience is of driving the route has been really calm. But today, I was in like a construction zone and somebody was like pulling right up on my tail. And there was a couple of police officers, and I was like, this guy should be thanking me because if I weren't here blocking his way, he would be getting a speeding ticket right now. But I finally pulled over, and then he like zoomed past, and I didn't exactly make a gesture, but I kind of like threw up my hands in frustration, and he must have seen a gesture, so he like basically stops on the highway, pulls up next to me, and then just whatever, he just takes off. And I usually would say to myself, like, why do you let yourself get triggered? Like, maybe he's on the way to the hospital, like all these things. And today I was just like, that pisses me off, and I'm just going to let it piss me off today. And that's like not my go-to response. I always feel like I have to like make it nice and everything. So that's like, kind of exactly what you're saying is, let's just have the experience we're having.
I hear the word container, like it says a lot about the container, which could go back to the body. Like this is a physical container for us, our psyche, but like you held a container for yourself where whether it was uncontained, you were able to fully feel how you felt. And because it has been so, I mean, I've noticed this in myself, just so flippant or just sudden like expressions or even just thoughts, or even if it's inward, and of course more so externalized through others. That's huge, Kay. Like to recognize, talk about being human, like this uniqueness of being human, not unique like we're better than other animals or other life beings that we might discover or already know about, but this ability to witness or like be aware of, yeah, I'm pissed, I'm human and I'm pissed, and I'm a spiritual being, or I have some capacity to notice that, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Like like I know you in a way too, as you've been sharing. You just share yourself so in such a real way, but such a heartfelt way. Like, and I think like there's a lot, it reminds me of digestion. Like a lot of us are needing some more time to digest how we've responded and reacted even this year.
Yeah.
And how it's shown us more exactly, or the nuances of like, whoa, that's what it feels like to get pissed off, and it happens out of nowhere, or it can happen out of nowhere, and it doesn't even have to make sense. It
Yeah.
just is like, but the same for joy, the same for spaciousness, the same for compassion.
And you know what was different about it was that I didn't make it about him, that he was doing something wrong or that he was rude or whatever. I just made it about me. Like I
Yes,
just don't like that
yes,
situation, and I'm feeling this. And that was like a big shift for me, because usually I would be like, why do people have to act that way? It's like it's not safe, and there's people, construction, whatever, the whole
yeah.
story.
That's a very digestible and like relatable way when you talk about, when I say like outer ecosystem and inner ecosystem, like what does that mean? It's like take responsibility for how you feel, and it's okay. How could how you feel ever be wrong? There is never anything wrong with how we feel and how we react. Like, and I'm hearing that it feels like it's washing over me. Like there's some what I call healing in
Yeah.
that. And then it's digestible, and then there's opportunity to refine. If you're getting pissed off every day, you might be like, okay, like I'm not driving that route again right now, or like whatever. There's practical solutions, and many counselors and therapists and good friends out there, and internet sites and everything to help us. And if anyone needs help with that, I'm sure either you and I even have some good resources, because sometimes we don't feel like you're like on the route again. you're pissed off again and you're just like, ah, it can get too much. But I think there's this is Jupiter with Pluto, where it's like a generosity of like, it's okay and you could let that go. Like no guilt or shame needed.
Yeah.
Wow, I had the opportunity to feel again what it's like to be human right now as I am. And that might even bring us together.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, one of the things that you said in our podcast that I think is also relevant is that you said that everything is love and everything comes from love. And that's just a pretty challenging teaching. And you also said like that instead of making a story around it, try seeing it all the way through. And I'm wondering if you could kind of speak to
Yeah,
that.
I lied. No, it reminds me of what I said earlier about how beautiful you now I already forget what you said, but I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. And like, if everything is love, like, what is love? Love is everything. Like, so love can be the, I wanted to say hatred, but like, that doesn't make any sense. But what if love was independent of our preference? I think we think love is, it's like a trickster thing to talk about love in this way,
Yeah.
but like, what if love is everything? Like, we're speaking to unconditional love is really what we're doing. And that's a reach for humans because it's almost impossible. But every one of us, I think almost every one of us knows what unconditional love is, even if we feel like we're messing up all the time, or like we keep ridiculing our loved ones, or it's hard, our heart closes and we reject. All that's happening, yet that river that flows through it, that golden thread, we know.
Yeah.
What part of us knows. And this year has, I think, exfoliated or thinned the barriers. Like, you're more able to, from what I'm hearing from you, are more able to be with yourself, so to speak, even when you were angry, which might be a thing that we're like, oh, I don't want to be angry, or whatever. I don't mean to say you were angry, but
Yeah.
whatever was coming through. And that's my experience of seeing the beauty in all of it. And even the beauty in messing up, even the beauty in, I can say the philosophy, I can speak it, I can teach about it, but like at the end of the day, I mess up every day, so to speak, like, and how can I forgive, so to speak? Like the sun forgives like the night for coming. It just happens. Like there's something, such a sweet surrender. And this is again the Jupiter Pluto conjunction, you know, like these planets, when they meet together the third time tomorrow, sometimes events occur. It could be as simple as this conversation. It could be nuance. It's the third time around. So the first time, I'm forgetting exactly when this happened, but it was like, it's been three times through this year, um, where there might have been events or happenings, and there's a grace period, so it could be even a period of a week. But tomorrow's the exactitude where you might have an opportunity to see, like, how am I regenerating? Like, what am I learning from this time of like letting go and deep change? And like, what am I learning from it? What am I being taught? And it's very fair to say I don't know, or even I don't care. I'm pretty pissed off right now. That's actually radical acceptance. Like, I don't even want to hear that. Like, that's like, we have permission for that. But when you acknowledge that that's actually where you're at, then it only leads to more spaciousness, to where you'll be like, what I'm learning is like, I'm not into this right now, or whatever, and maybe it'll lead to some laughter, or, but also like, really, what are you learning? And it might not be readily available, the understanding of that.
Yeah.
Um, but for others, it could be, revelatory.
I just want to shout out to Andrea and Carol. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for saying hello. If you guys have questions for Aaron, please type them in the chat box. And I wonder if we could just finish up and maybe if you could tell us what the astrology is telling us for 2021. What should we be thinking about preparing for?
Yeah, that's someone like myself who just loves language and different ways of translating and loves astrology. This is such a juicy question. And I find myself more vulnerable than ever in when the opportunity to actually speak to it comes. I'm like,
It's too much.
No, it's so good. Saturn has been in Capricorn for the last 3 years. Jupiter's been in Capricorn since 2008, and Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008, and Jupiter is taking a year to go through Capricorn this year. And all those planets have been meeting up in the same area, especially since January, Saturn and Pluto. And then they're all kind of doing this dance together, going. And then quickly, Saturn and Jupiter are going to go into Aquarius and meet up at 0 degrees Aquarius, the beginning of that energy on the winter solstice in December. And they're resetting their union, which is a 20-year cycle, but it's a 200-year cycle of those energies reuniting in air, where they've been reuniting in earth energy for the last 200 years or so. And I'm trying to keep this simple because it can get so complex, all the cycles, but there's a whole new, it's like when you open up all the windows in spring and get fresh air in your house, there's a whole new air to the environment, but it's a reset, just like Saturn met up with Pluto and reset at the January 2020 in Capricorn, but that was a more heavy, dense energy, which we've seen this year, but it was just a reset. It's like we just started mulching the gardens. But again, it's not so literal. Like Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008. What happened in 2008 in the United States? Like the economy started shifting immediately. And then it's been this long thing. And Pluto still has a number of more years to go through Capricorn and reset with the natal Pluto in the US chart in 2022. So we're just seeing the effects of this mulching. But again, the planetary reset at the end of this year, coming into 2021, is showing Aquarius, the water in the air, the connectivity of air, of communication through technology. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. Through groups, Aquarius, through the higher good, through seeing at the top of the mountain. So, even the next weeks to come, if each person's like, what am I learning? What's the top of the mountain kind of view? Like, do I see things more clearly or in a new way? Has my perspective changed? I'm not saying that this is generally going to be more positive, because that's kind of a judgment or a personal assessment. For many of us, we're going to have an opening that's going to feel less heavy and less dense. But it's going to give rise to the older systems wanting to hang on and keep doing their thing. And it's going to give rise to the new, more revolutionary or innovative systems to give rise and want to be implemented as well. And, may they do this. But this is a world of duality, so when you see it on the material level, it's going to have light and dark. It's going to have probably conjure your preference of good or bad. And it's so intense these days. It's like, I hate that. I reject that. I split off that. I defriend that. People are defriending the government, or unfriending the government. Can you do that? And I think this new planetary reset, some people are going to be like, I unfriended the government. I mean, whatever that means, but something like that outrageous. But it's like, to your point, let it be simple. Like, go back to simplicity. A lot of people are going back to nature or just going back to the natural flow of their breath, their embodiment, and just like doing the best they can with the changing systems and maybe implementing some innovation or saying yes to new innovations coming out.
Yeah.
So we are just getting started with a new 20-year cycle, which is a 200-year cycle in air. So again, we're coming into the age of technology, which, what does that mean? I think my grandmother went from cars to computers in her lifetime and she's passed. Like, you think about how monumental that was. We're nowhere. I mean, it's so easy to say, right? But we have no idea in the next decade. I mean, we kind of have some ideas, but like, we don't really know what it feels like in our body and our breath. I mean, I barely can handle 20 minutes on Facebook without being like, what just happened?
Wow.
In a positive way or also in a way where I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Well,
exciting, and it is generally giving an opportunity for some lightness.
mm,
But if you don't know what you're learning and you're not interested in finding out, it's going to leave it up to the systems that are already in charge or the new systems to do it for you. And that could work for you, you know, and many people will be of service to those systems and just be a humble servant or just try to pay the rent and make, you know, feed their kids or whatever. And that's really good. And may you be blessed with some joy in your life, but other people are going to really feel their empowerment and get involved in new ways.
let me ask you a question for Carol. She's saying, what happens when you have a block and you can't seem to get through it? She says, I have been so angry and hostile and can't do anything.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. Gosh. First of all, for the question, um, I mean, I just like felt silence for a moment too, and just,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say again, thank you for that question. Like, because there's not an easy answer, you know, it's not a alive and kicking Facebook like chant, like we're like, we got it. I mean, that would be so presumptuous.
Yeah.
Um, I know that it's possible to get through a block that where you think it'll take you out, and you would even choose to harm yourself or someone else instead of be with the block. And it's still, there are miracles, there's still space, like anything is possible. And I just want to speak to that intensity of, if you ever feel like I can't budge this. And the thing is, sometimes the simplest, softest thing to the hardest thing, the soft overcomes the hard, is one of the translations in the Tao Te Ching, which is one of the oldest texts. The soft overcomes the hard. So how can we summon the courage to soften our stance around what we think is a block? And it doesn't mean you're not right about what you feel. It actually maybe is giving a little more, like what you said, Kay, like to feel it and to feel it all the way through. I didn't really speak to that, but like when you feel the block, like what is it to just like touch it and even lovingly touch it, to feel its spikes, to feel its toxic energy, or to feel its impossibility. And maybe, you know, maybe do this with me right now. What is that? And I'm just putting my hands like this, but it's like to touch in to like a knife in the dark and not cut yourself, but just slide your finger along that sharp razor edge and know that if you went too fast, it could slice and you would bleed, you know, like it would harm, but like to go slowly, to soften, to pause, to conjure the bravery and the courage that, what if I don't have to fight in the way that I've thought I did, or maybe there's a different way to work with this. And in that space, something opens, something changes in our field. I don't know how to explain it, but like suddenly a phone call comes and a friend reaches out and you don't even want to answer it, you know? Or you get on the internet trying to distract yourself, but you've conjured, like, I'm willing to be with this again. You know, how many days has this gone on? How many years? How many lifetimes have I felt this blogger? How impossible. And then something pops up on the internet, you know, or like you go out for a walk, and I mean, there's endless things that just start to, it's what we work with in massage therapy, where like you start to heat up the system by like just putting constant attention or hand pressure or presence to it, and it starts to become more malleable.
Yeah.
And I know that I don't know if this is like exactly the right words, or if it's touching in, but like there is something about pausing and the willingness to feel it fully. Like maybe I haven't felt it all the way through. Maybe there's something else I don't know about this, that the block is also the opening.
Yeah.
There's a doorknob or something like that.
I can speak to that so much with the physical, because I have been going through this problem with my hand where I have severe pain in my fingertip. And it is, sometimes it radiates all the way up into the shoulder, but it's always in the finger, and it seems so small, but the pain is unbelievable.
But
And
even that gesture, like that's a strong gesture.
and even like this has been going on for so long, and I've tried, you know, physical therapy, I've tried massage, I've tried, you know, all kinds of different things. And I just decided to stop all that and just let it hurt. It just hurts. It hurts all the time. It hurts every day. But I've noticed that when I remove my attention from solving it,
Yeah.
it solves itself. And this has been a pattern with anything physical that I've gone through. Like, and then one day you'll be like, oh, my finger doesn't hurt anymore. Like, wonder how that happened.
Same with massage therapy. You say you have a shoulder issue here, you might massage over here, and it promotes relaxation. It promotes ease of the tension of the mind. This. And then we found that there's neurologically in all these, I mean, there's so many ways that it's like, oh, it just, a solution comes or it releases. Same with the block that's being spoken of. Like sometimes we're butting our heads against the block, and it's like, could you bring your attention to something you love and enjoy?
Yeah.
You know, with the intention of like, I'm not looking away from that block or whatever that issue is, or I honor it for what it is, or I don't understand it, whatever the stance is, and I'm going to go do this other thing. And it just starts to lubricate us.
Yeah.
And possibly opens us up in a way that we didn't know we were closed to, so that the solution can come in. The help. I'm getting a strong, it's more, I don't know how to explain intuition, but are you willing to receive help? Specifically with that question. And receive the help as it presents itself, which might be like, need some decoding. Like it could even be something like, oh, I have an opportunity to do something I love. What if that's actually helping promote the solution? Or it could be something very literal, as someone, the solution's there and you're just really not, the block is actually like, I don't want that solution.
Yeah.
Like say you needed to change jobs and you just don't want to change the job. You know, like you could be blocking, but the solution is let go, surrender. And I mean, that's really, I want to cuss about it. It's really annoying when someone tells you to surrender and you're like, not now. No. Like, it's like I've done, you know, I've trained in massage therapy, for instance, or like in yoga, you know, the yoga teacher's like, and relax, you know, and you're just like, you know, like, like and I laugh because it's not nice. Like as the yoga teacher, I'm like, don't send daggers at me. But like sometimes it's just like it's again the inner and outer ecosystem, the block is within us, yet the material reality, the astrology energy is so exacerbated on the outside that it's like brick wall, brick wall, brick wall, and you have bloody knuckles, and then there's an infection, and you're trying to like crochet a blanket because you don't have money to like warm yourself. Yeah, like it's just all these snowball effects, and then you forgot that like I'm holding my belly so tight that I'm not even able to like receive like I used to be. And I think there's been some long effects of 2020 that are going to require a little active rest or active counsel or active digesting on purpose. And the planetary reset should help with that, but you can't just sit on the couch or just listen to this, this talk. We're going to need to be actively receptive and open and vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah. So before we sign off, I just want to remind everybody that this podcast, the Still Kicking podcast that we do on Facebook Live, as well as the Alive and Kicking podcasts, are all available. You can go to my website, kayak.com, and find all the links to your favorite, podcast channels. You can find everything there. And we'll have another new podcast next week. And we're trying to do the Alive and Kicking on the off week, or the Still Kicking. So with that, I want to ask you if you have anything that you want to say before we sign off.
I think we've said enough for now. People are always welcome to reach out to me if they want to inquire further into this discovery, and I'm writing regularly on my Facebook page too for some of these, just to hold the space is the best I know how to do.
Yeah, I'll have, if you could go to the chat and just put your information in there and how people can find you, I think that would be awesome.
Oh, sure. And anyone who's been listening or listens to this recorded, just thank you for receiving, just for paying attention. It's my intention, and I know yours, Kay, too, to set a space where whatever it is that's said, it's holding a space for people to unravel a little bit in a positive way, to release. And may it be just the simplest thing, like just a conscious breath in and out, but may that little micro dosage of whatever it is through this time together open us up into that felt experience of some joy, some ecstasy, or just a little bit of lightness, depending on where we're at. And this world is much more malleable and much more, I get a chance to look at endless fields and mountainscapes that are unaffected by the political experience and all of that. And this world, the earth sphere, it's not all what's in the news, it's not all what it seems like it is. And it doesn't mean all that's not true in a way, and there's not a gravity and a seriousness, yet there is so much here for us. There's so much beauty that's so available and obvious and feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I feel that so much. Thank you so much for that. I second that. Reach for the light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us, Aaron. It's always a pleasure to get together with you and hear all of your brilliance coming to the surface. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thanks
So much love
for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.